They'll have to answer for what they did when they get to heaven. You ever hear that before? When we called out spiritual abuse in our church, that was the response we kept hearing. And honestly, it can sound comforting at first and very biblical. But the more we sat with it, the more we realized that phrase isn't comfort. It's a cop-out. Let's talk about why. Hey everyone, I'm Colin, the resident nerd and Bible scholar here at the Bible Uncut and Unfiltered. Here's the thing. Yes, vengeance belongs to God. But justice? That's our responsibility. And there's a big difference between the two. Think about Genesis 9 with me. After the flood, God doesn't say, I'll handle all the wrongdoing myself in the afterlife. No, he literally gives humans the authority and responsibility to address injustice here and now. He puts it in our hands. Or look at what Jesus told Peter. Whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven. Whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. That's not fancy language about waiting for the afterlife. That is giving the church real authority to act with eternal significance now. The prophet Micah tells us what God requires of us, and it is, in his words, to do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly. Not to hope for justice someday, not to pray about justice while doing nothing, to do justice. Here's what really gets me. We don't apply this wait for heaven logic to literally anything else in life. I mean, imagine with me that somebody's house gets robbed. Would we ever say, you know what, don't call the police, God will judge the thief in heaven? Of course not, that's absurd. Or if somebody is in a car accident where someone rear-ends them and somebody gets hurt, we don't just say, oh, well, just forgive and move on, they'll answer to God eventually. No, we report it. We protect, we pursue justice. But somehow, when it comes to spiritual abuse, toxic leadership, systemic harm in the church, sometimes even sexual and physical abuse, suddenly we're supposed to be quiet and wait for the afterlife? Heaven becomes a wicked doctrine when it is used as an excuse to prevent people with power from doing good in this life. Let's be honest about what this phrase actually means. When people say they'll answer for it in heaven, what they really mean is, I don't want to make waves. I don't want to upset the status quo. I don't want to risk my reputation or position here. I don't want the discomfort of confrontation. It's coded language for inaction. And you know what? I get it. People often mean well. They are trying to trust God, but they're handcuffing themselves in ways that God never required. The comfort that God's got this is meant for things that are genuinely outside of our control. Cancer, natural disasters, the mysteries of suffering that we can't fix. But abuse, corruption, leaders exploiting their power, those aren't mysteries. Those are sins that we have the responsibility and the authority to address. Ecclesiastes tells us there is a time for everything, including a time to speak up. Proverbs instructs us to, quote, speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, and to, quote, defend the rights of the poor and needy. Not later, not in eternity, now. James goes even further with it. He writes, anyone who knows the good they ought to do and doesn't do it, it is sin for them. Ouch. I want to be clear. There is a place for forgiveness. There is a place for releasing bitterness. There is a place for trusting that God sees what we don't see. But forgiveness does not mean no consequences. Grace does not mean no accountability. Trusting God does not mean abdicating your responsibility. You can forgive someone and also require them to step down from leadership. You can release your anger to God and report abuse to authorities. You can trust God's ultimate justice and pursue earthly accountability. Those things aren't contradictions. They are all biblical. So here's what I want you to hear. If you have been told to stay silent because God will handle it, you've been lied to. God has already given you the authority, the responsibility, and the calling to pursue justice here and now. Not as vengeance, not as bitterness, but as obedience. Obedience to the God who commands us to do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly before him. And the world is watching how the church handles abuse and corruption. And right now, we're showing them that we care more about protecting institutions than protecting people. That needs to change. And it starts by rejecting the false comfort of they'll answer for it in heaven and embracing the difficult, necessary work of justice today.